Welcome to an unscripted Trimet 101 video. Today we're going to be talking about short line. Not shoreline, not Seattle area, short line. What does that mean and more? Short lining is when a bus only does a chunk of the route, not its entire route. So for example, this is the first one that comes to my mind because I've done it before. I never filmed it, but Line 9, before the operator shortage and things that happened at the beginning of 2022, Line 9 during the rush hour used to have a lot of trips that would go only from downtown Portland to Powell and 92nd. They would not go all the way to Gresham Transit Center. And that was it. That was the whole route. And those would be sprinkled in, so you would have buses every 15 minutes going from downtown Portland to Gresham, and then partway through would be a trip that only went from downtown to Powell and 92nd. There used to be quite a bit of these, and a lot of these have since gone away. A couple of them are going to be returning, sorta. Line 15 in the spring. If you check the Pantograph app schedules and things, they're bringing some weird things back, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about what's happened in the past and what I would like to see happening, hopefully in the near future. Although before I get into that, let me just talk about efficiency and cost of operating and things like that. In general, it is always going to be more cost effective to spread service levels over the course of an entire day rather than only running buses during the rush hour. It is the reason why the Markham Hill routes, the 61, 64, 65, 66, 68, those only ran during the rush hour, and they ran toward Markham Hill in the morning and away in the evening. Asterisk, I won't get into the two trips that actually were reverse running, but in general, yes, they only ran peak direction. And that is very inefficient because you're clumping a lot of operators into a short period of time rather than spreading that resource over the course of an entire day. So now you have lines 43 and 56 that have replaced those and run all day, 7 days a week, every 30 minutes. Although it does kind of suck that we lost the express versions of these routes. I'm not here to talk about that today. I'm just here to talk about the short line stuff. And so the reason I'm bringing all this up is because when you add short line trips into your schedules, they're typically going to be during the rush hours only, which is not an efficient schedule practice, but it kind of is the only thing that works. So I'm going to introduce, all these routes that I see short lining being a good idea, but just note that a lot of these are going to be rush hour only. So it's not really efficient of a way to use this resource, but I will say there are always going to be part-time operators. Some operators that literally just do one trip. For example, line 26. The line 26 is just one trip. And the block, like 2601 or 2602, either one of those blocks, they literally just drive the bus in one trip and then go back to the garage. So there's always going to be really short blocks. Those are always going to be a thing. Part-time positions are always going to be a thing. And so with all of that in mind, this may not be necessarily as bad of an idea. Yes, in general, it's always good to spread the resources over the course of an entire day and to be able to do that 7 days a week. But rush hour part-time positions are also always going to be needed. I did not write these at all in order on my script, so I'm just going to talk about it here. Line 8. Line 8, it's very weird because they do include some trips that only go from downtown Portland to Markham Hill, but it's only the morning rush hour, and after the spring 2025 service changes, it appears to me as though that's kind of gone away. But Line 8 and all of the workers up at Markham Hill, the VA hospital, and OHSU, there's a lot of workers up there, and so it makes sense to have buses going from downtown all the way there. You could just take the Max to Pioneer Square and hop on an 8. And with 40-foot buses always going to be the norm here because Markham Hill and some of the neighborhoods, they probably wouldn't want articulated buses in, you're going to need to run shorter buses more frequently. The 40-foot buses every 7 to 8 minutes during the rush. I already mentioned this one, but Line 9 used to have them from downtown Portland to Powell and 92nd. I think they used to be peak direction. I'd have to double check on the Wayback Machine. So the short line trips would go into Portland in the morning. So only the westbound Line 9s would actually have it on their schedule in the morning. And then they would leave downtown Portland in the evening. And so only the eastbound Line 9's schedule would have it in the evening. I'd almost argue that both would be fine, because Powell has such a large mix of destinations and has lots of north-south transfer points along its route that I don't think it would be a terrible idea to have it going in both directions. I didn't even mention this in my script, but the old Line 66, there was a top secret trip that made no sense. And it was afternoon only. It was just one trip. And I think it was for the high school students or something, although it was really weird. It only served stops on Powell Boulevard, but instead of going to Markham Hill, it served Line 9 stops in downtown Portland and then just turned into a 36, which has also been discontinued, and did a 36 the rest of the night. It was weird. And the reason I bring that up here is because that was also an additional rush hour trip that operated express. It only served Powell and 26th, 21st, and Milwaukee Avenue. Those were the only stops on Powell, and then it just went into downtown Portland. So bringing something like that, like a Line 9E or something, would be quite nice. Line 72 used to have extra rush hour trips that went between Clackamas Town Center and Killingsworth and Cully, or Killingsworth and 72nd, whatever you want to call that. Those have long since gone away, and those need to come back. The 82nd Avenue portion is by far the busiest portion of Line 72, and while we await FX construction, it would probably be a good idea to have some 82nd Avenue only buses that just go Clackamas Town Center to Killingsworth and Cully. I wrote this schedule before Line 48 was frequent service, which goes to show you how far backed up I was with the videos, but Lines 47 and 48 both had, this is going to be confusing, but there was a chunk of the routes that during the rush hour would run every 15 minutes, but it was just a chunk of the routes. Now Line 48 entirely runs frequent service from Hillsborough to Sunset. Used to be only between Stuckey Avenue and Sunset, was every 50 minutes during the rush only. And Line 47 would get extra trips between Orenco Station and PCC Rock Creek. This spring, a lot of that is going to change, but there still will be trips that go from Orenco Station to Willow Creek, creating 15-minute frequent service, at least on the eastern portion of the route, which is cool to see. Line 12 desperately needs it. Until the Southwest Corridor line hopefully gets maybe thought up again to, oh, maybe we should revive this. Line 12 absolutely needs higher frequency, at least between Tigard and Portland, and at the very least during the rush hour. I'd like to see it all day, where there are buses every 7 to 8 minutes between Tigard and Portland all day long on weekdays, because Line 12 truly is that busy. But I'll take it just during the rush hour if it makes things easier. I think Line 57 gets busy enough to where between Hillsborough Transit Center and Beaverton Transit Center, extra trips there, I think that would work out too. There are sign codes in the bus for Line 57 to Hillsborough Transit Center. It's never used because every single Line 57 trip does its entire route, but the sign code is in there, and during the rush hour, increasing frequency, even if it's just very briefly, I think would help. Line 20 could maybe use it as well between maybe Burnside and 23rd, or Burnside and Titchener Drive and Gresham, or maybe to Burnside and 102nd or something. Just a chunk of the route there that would be the busiest portion, because again, Line 20 does get pretty busy. It needs to have higher frequency than just every 15 minutes all day. Although after looking at the schedules, it does seem like the frequency is a little generous, especially for the spring 2025 schedules. In the morning, it seems like there are buses kind of every 10 to 12-ish minutes. So it's not like it's hard and set at every 15 all day. It does fluctuate a little bit, which is good to see, but I'd like to see additional trips boosting the frequency noticeably more. This one's more of a maybe, but Line 76 between Beaverton Transit Center and Tigard Transit Center, it gets pretty busy during rush hour times, but at the same time you also have the West train operating during the rush hour, and so if that's going to be your trip, just of course take the West. But in general, Line 76 goes through some pretty heavily industrial and just commercial and corporate areas. And so the ridership during the rush hour is going to be pretty high. And that's where my script ends. So I think that's pretty much all I'm going to say here, but just extra little short line trips that I thought about and things that I think make sense. And so what I'm gonna also put in your head right at the end of this video is don't forget that express buses absolutely need to exist as well, and so things like line 14E definitely should make a comeback. Now, I know this isn't a video about the spring 2025 changes, but there are things with lines 14 and 15 that I would like to briefly mention, because they're doing they're gonna add an extra couple of trips in the morning and evening rush hour for line 14, and they're going to add some short line trips on line 15 that just go from downtown Portland around Alder and 14th. One trip only goes to Mount Tabor at Belmont and 60th, and then another one goes to, I think, 92nd Avenue, which is really weird because Gateway Transit Center is very, very close by, so I don't know why they don't just... whatever. So they're adding short line trips to line 15, which is really cool to see, and it seems like we're definitely going in the correct direction, which is good. But Express. Bring Express into the picture. I think I'm just gonna go to all of all of the higher ups at Trimet. I'm just gonna go to their houses at night after they go to bed and just whisper the word Express while they sleep to get it consciously in their mind, so that at the next board meeting everybody's like, oh hey, let's start introducing these. No, I am not that creepy, I promise you. This video's gone off the rails, no pun intended. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.